Hey, Jen McCaskill here. Today we are talking about child support in the state of New Jersey. If you have children, then it's very likely that one parent is going to have a child support obligation to the other parent. Child support in the state of New Jersey is one parent's share of the children's necessities in the other parent's house, meaning food in their mouths, clothes on their back, the cost of schlepping them around, and such. There's a whole list in the appendix of the child support guidelines that actually lists what's covered. So let's talk about how child support is calculated. In every state, there's something called child support guidelines. It's different in every state, and today we're only talking about New Jersey. So if you're in Pennsylvania, don't watch this video. Okay, here we go. Here's the information that you need in order to plug in to the child support guidelines and figure out what the obligation is. First, we look at who's going to be the parent of primary residence, also referred to as PPR, who's going to be the parent of alternate residence, also referred to as PAR by divorce lawyers. The parent of primary residence means the parent with whom the children spend more overnights with on an annual basis. That's the PPR. The PAR is the other parent. There's no such thing as visitation. That's not how it's termed anymore. It's parent of primary residence versus the parent of alternate residence. Okay, if you have 50-50 custody, then the parent of primary residence is going to be the parent in whose school district the children attend. If both parents live in the same school district and you have 50-50 custody, then there's no need to designate a PPR versus a PAR. So if mom and dad live in Rumson and dad moves out and moves to Red Bank, mom stays in Rumson with the children continue to go to the Rumson school district, then mom is going to be the parent of primary residence for school district purposes only if they have 50-50 custody. Okay, you with me? So once we know who the parent of primary residence is and who the parent of alternate residence is, we're going to plug in the income for each party, and that's going to be your gross annual income. Let's say that mom, and I'm not being, prejudiced or anything, but a lot of times mom has not been the primary breadwinner, or mom hasn't worked, mom has not pursued a career and instead stayed home and ran the house and manage the children so dad could go have his career. So if you go to get divorced and you're mom and you've been home for 20 years or however many years and you don't work, the judge is not going to put you at zero for child support guidelines. What the judge is going to do is the judge is going to impute you income. What that means is the judge can't say, okay, Sue, you have to go get a job and then report back how much money you make so I can plug it into the child support guidelines. What the judge is going to do is say, Sue, if you got a job tomorrow based on your age, education, background, and a whole number of other factors, you could make X number of dollars per year. In the state of New Jersey, I think that if somebody works full-time, minimum wage, it's about $18,000 a year of annual income. So that's the minimum amount that Sue's going to get imputed for child support purposes. So you plug in your income or your imputed income, the parent of alternate residence's income, and then if there's alimony paid, that gets included as well. Alimony paid by the PAR comes off of their income and it goes on to the income of the PPR. Now, since the tax law changed in 2019, alimony is no longer tax deductible to the person who pays it and taxable as income to the person who receives it, but it still gets included in the child support guidelines. That is an additional source of income, even if the income is not taxable. Okay, so you plug in the income or the imputed income, you plug in the alimony paid by one and received by the other. You also have to plug in the cost of the medical insurance for the children only. I'll say to my client, hey, Joe, I need to know how much you pay in medical insurance costs for the children. And he goes, I pay $1,000 a month for a family plan. Okay, no, it's not $1,000 a month that gets plugged in. I say to Joe, hey, call your HR person, find out what the medical insurance cost is for you alone to cover yourself to cover, and then the cost to cover you and the children, and then we subtract one from the other and we plug in the difference. So if it costs Joe $1,000 a month for him and the children, but it would only cost him $500 a month to cover himself, then we plug in the $500 a month difference for the cost for the children only, because the person who pays the health insurance on behalf of the children, that gets calculated into the child support guidelines. Okay? Then we go to the number of overnights. The number of overnights really is directly proportionate to how much you pay or how much you receive in child support. The more overnights you have, the less child support you're going to pay, and vice versa. So in New Jersey, there's two sets of guidelines. There's what's called the sole guidelines and the shared guidelines. The sole guidelines mean that the parent of alternate residence has less than 104 overnights a year. The shared guidelines means that the parent of alternate residence has more than 104 overnights a year. So you come to me and you say, Jen, I have every other weekend with my children. That is 52 overnights a year. If you come to me and you say, Jen, I have every other weekend plus one overnight during the week each week, that's 104 overnights a year. You pay more under the sole guidelines than you do under the shared, meaning you pay more in child support. But the law assumes that the more you have your children, the more money you're going to be spending on them when you have them. You're still going to be paying for their clothes and to schlep them around and for their food and all of that. So that's how child support is calculated in the state of New Jersey. Just a basic understanding. Now, when it comes to modification of child support is always modifiable in the state of New Jersey based on a substantial change in circumstances. A substantial change in circumstances that I see a lot of times is alimony goes away. Either somebody's remarried, somebody has cohabited, somebody, or the alimony term has just expired. So when there's no more alimony, that adds the income back in for the PAR and it reduces the income available to the PPR. So that triggers a review of child support. The other most common child support review mechanism would be when one child goes to college. So if you have a child that goes to college and actually lives away at college, that is also will trigger a review of child support. But if you've got a kid that lives home and goes to Brookdale, the child support guidelines still apply. So that is just the basics of child support in the state of New Jersey. Know that nobody is getting rich off of child support in the state of New Jersey. A lot of times, if you've got teenagers, it ends up just being the cost to cover groceries for the month. One final thing is if you have 50-50 custody, it's not automatic that there's zero child support. I hear that all the time. That is not true. Just because you have 50-50 custody does not mean that you will not owe child support or that you will not receive child support. Child support in the state of New Jersey automatically terminates when the child turns 23 or graduates from college. If the child graduates from high school and does not go on to college or trade school, then they are considered emancipated. But unless the child has special needs or is disabled or has some other reason that they can't go live on their own as an adult and support themselves, child support is automatically going to terminate at age 23. That's it. If you have any questions, please give us a call, 732-747-1882.